Good morning, students. So, we'll be taking up the topic for today's class as Consumer Protection Act and what are the laws relating to protection of consumer rights in India. So, in your syllabus, there are basically four heads that have been covered. First is the definition of consumer goods and services, rights and duties of consumers, authorities that are there for the protection of consumer protection, and what are the remedies that are available. But in order to start with the concept of consumer protection, we need to understand that consumers plays a very important role in the economic system of any nation. They are the main players. They are the key players in the marketplace, and their consumption pattern influences the society and the economy to a greater extent. So, when we talk about the modern philosophy of marketing, consumers are supposed to be king, and business is expected to provide maximum possible satisfaction to consumers. Now, when we talk about technology, even technology has made available a variety of goods and services to consumers from all over the world, and which are only a click away. And it is important that these products and services that are being provided in the market every day, they should be of some quality to the satisfaction of the consumer. And it is possible that with the products that are given to consumers are not up to the satisfaction of the consumers. So where does the consumer where are the rights of the consumers protected? So the question is answered by this act, which is Consumer Protection Act, where it deals with the protection of rights of the consumer with respect to the goods and services that are availed by consumer from the market. As there are many new challenges that are faced by consumer with the evolution of technology, such as cyber crimes, plastic money, unsuitable consumption, global warming, which affects them in number of ways. Though we say that consumers are referred to as king, but actually they are the victims, and they are victims in number of ways. In where Because of the malpractices that are existing in the society, the ultimate effect is done on the consumers. Producers and sellers only have one motto: to maximize their profit by engaging all sort of practices and producing products that do not meet acceptable quality standards. So ultimately, who is the victim here? The consumer is the victim because of the acts of the producers and manufacturers. So who, in order to maximize their profits, exploit consumers by supplying poor quality of goods at higher prices. Consumer are exposed to physical, environmental and other hazardous situations. As a result, what happens? Consumers do not get value for their money. When we talk about that, what is the purpose behind Consumer Protection Act is that with the industrial revolutions and development in international trade and commerce, with the advancement in technology, these things have led to the vast expansion of business and trade. And as a result, there are various services that are availed by by consumer. Goods are availed by them, like for example insurance services, transport services, entertainment, finance and banking. So all these sectors that are providing services and various manufacturers who are providing goods to them, it is ensured that whatever goods and services that are provided to these consumers, they're up to the expectations and are of better quality. So this is the purpose why we say that yes, Consumer Protection Act is required and is a need of our, in order to protect these consumers who are considered to be the king of the market. Because if the consumer is satisfied, it will ultimately affect the economy of a nation, and it will increase the development of that particular nation. So when we talk about the evolution of consumer protection, we say that it is that aspect which has deep roots in the rich soil of Indian civilization, and that can be dated back to 3200 BC. So when we talk about ancient India, we say that in ancient India, human values were cherished and ethical practices were considered of great importance. However, the rulers felt that the welfare of their subject was the primary area of concern. They showed very much interest in regulating not only the social conditions but also the economic life of their people, establishing many trade restrictions to protect the interest of buyers. So, when we talk about the evolution, it is not something that existed in today's world. It is something that existed even at the time when there were no laws. Purpose at that time was similar to what exists today, that is welfare of the people of the society. So we say that even today we have socialistic and welfare form of state that focuses on not only the social development but also towards improving the economic life of its people. And this is evident from the enactment of welfare laws by Indian government, by various nations, that include Consumer Protection Act as one of the law that has been taken up to protect the interest of the consumers. So when we talk about the development of law in ancient India, we say that in ancient India all sections of society followed the concept of dharma shastra, that is dharma, which laid out social rules and norms and served as the guiding principle governing human relations. The principle of dharma were derived from Vedas. Vedas were considered to be the words of God, and law was said to have divine origin, which was transmitted to society through sages. Thus, Vedas were the primary sources of law in India at that time. Even during that time, there were mainly four types of criminal activities that were carried out in that period. First one was adulteration of foodstuff, charging of excess price, fabrication of weight and measures, sale of forbidden articles. So these were the four broad types of criminal offenses that were prominent in ancient period. And for these offenses, statutory measures were also recommended from time to time by leading text of that time. And one of the texts of that time is the Manu Smriti, who advocated severe punishments for unfair business practices that included to deal with faulty weights, measures. The Manusmriti provided that all weights and measures must be duly marked by the king and should be re-examined. Manusmriti explained that it was obligatory on the king to fix the rates for the purchase and sale of all marketable goods, and fixation of price by king was to be made by public. In Kaushalya Arthashastra, consumer protection occupies a prominent place. It describes the role of the state in regulating trade and its duty to prevent crimes against consumer, to protect the consumer from excessive price charged by the traders. Adulteration was recognized as one of the offenses in Arthashastra. Traders who, during the purchase and sale, raised the price or secured extra profit of 5% beyond a fixed limit were fined heavily. So, Arthashastra expresses two other keys areas concerning consumer. First was regulating concerning sale of animal flesh and obligation of professions like artisan, craftsmen, etc. So when we talk about historical aspect, we say that yes, even during that time, these steps were taken up under the Indian legal system by the under the guidance of king. Now, when we talk about medieval period, we say that consumer protection continued to be a prime concern for rulers. And during Muslim rule, a large number of unit of weights were used in India. During Sultanate period, the prices used were determined by local conditions. During rule of Alauddin Khilji, strict control were established in the marketplace. In those days, there was unending supply of grains to the city, and grain carriers sold at price fixed by by the Sultan. There was a mechanism for price enforcement in the market. Similarly, shopkeepers were punished for underweight, giving any goods that were not as per the prescribed weight if they are giving any like underweighing of the goods. So we say that yes, this is something that existed, even continued in medieval period. Now, when we talk about the modern period, we say that the British system replaced the old age tradition of legal system, and one of the outstanding achievements during the British rule in India was the formation of unified nationwide modern legal system. So it was during the British period that the legal system was totally revolutionized, and the English legal system was introduced to administer justice. However, here it is important to note that the tradition and customs of Indian legal system were not ignored, and the law itself underwent various adaptations. British institutions and rulers were combined with structural features, a system of separate personal laws and rules of dharma, local customs, were accorded with the proper understanding. And when the all these elements taken together, there was proper laws that were laid down at that time. It is important to know that the change of legal structure that took place during the British period, there were many other laws that were taken up, like, for example, during the British period, like, for example, Indian Contract Act, Sales of Good Act 1930, Indian Penal Code, Drug and Cosmetic Act, then Agriculture Producers Act. When we talk about Consumer Protection Act, the Indian legal system experienced a revolution with the enactment of Consumer Protection Act, and which was specifically designed to protect consumer interest, as already been stated. So, in addition to Consumer Protection Act, these were certain other acts that were taken up in order to protect the interest of the consumers, like specific relief, drug, cosmetic, prevention of food adulteration, Essential Commodities Act, Standard of Weight and Measures Act, Bureau of Indian Standard Acts, Drugs Magic Acts. These are certain acts which are still there are in existence. Either they have been amended or repealed in a one way or the other, but yes, there exist these laws in addition to Consumer Protection Act that have been designed to protect the interests of the consumer, specifically when they are dealing in the market, or they are more specific with respect to the qualities with which they are provided with. So here, in order to understand that what are the rights that have been granted, it is also important to understand that from where have we derived these rights. So Indian Constitution is one of, as we know, that it's a grand norm, and it is the law that specifies all other laws. So we say that Article 14 that talks about equality, right? This is a result in before the law and equal protection of law. This results in manufacturers, producers, traders, sellers, and consumer having an equal position before law. Article 39 has two clauses, B and C, according to which state is bound to direct its policies to ensure the distribution of ownership of material resources. Article 43 is there, where the state must strive to develop an economic organization or to make legislations in order to secure a decent standard of life. When we are talking about these articles, we say that yes, these articles play an important role in framing that as to why the right should exist. So when we talk about Indian Act, that is Consumer Protection Act, we say that the Indian legal system experienced a revolution with the enactment of this act, which was specifically designed, as already stated, to protect the consumer's interest, and it was passed with objectives, with the purposes, and intended to provide justice which is less formal, involves less paperwork, there are less delays, less expenses are there. So these are basically few purposes for laying down Consumer Protection Act in order to serve best the consumer. And Consumer Protection Act received wide recognition in India as poor man's legislation, ensuring easy access to justice. So even a consumer can approach consumer courts without the help of an advocate. This is something that you should know. So when we talk about this, that's why it is known as the legislation of poor man. But however, and when we talk about Consumer Protection Act, that is CPA, it simply gives a new dimension to rights that have been recognized and protected since the ancient period. So this is something that we are protecting from longer period. It's just that it has given a shape to these rights. So it is rightly said that the present day concern for consumer right is not something which is new, and that the consumer's right, like the right to have safe, unadulterated, defect-free commodities, act at appropriate prices, have been recognized since ancient India. Just to conclude today's lecture, which was basically the introduction of consumer protection, I would like to say that consumer protection has always been a matter of great concern for a nation. Where in ancient India, effective measures were taken up to protect consumer rights that continued in medieval period and even in the British era. So, where ancient law have given us laws like there should not be any unfair trade practices, there should be severe punishment for of the to the wrongdoer for harming the interest of the consumers. So when we talk about acts of adulteration, false weight and measures, these were certain things that were taken with a very seriousness, and the king at that time was the supreme authority to render justice, and this was something that revolved around the concept of dharma. In medieval period, it is something where the Muslim rulers developed well organized market mechanisms. During British period, we had a more modern systemized legal system that was introduced, and there were many laws that were enacted in India. So when we talk about consumer, we talk about Consumer Protection Act. So here I in my lecture, and next lecture will be taking up what are the basic features of Consumer Protection Act, what is the difference between Consumer Protection Act 1986 and 2019, what are the rights and duties and other aspects that are dealt with in your syllabus specifically. Till then, take care. Have a nice day.